If you have never heard a Kargan predator roar inside a sealed learning dome, let me describe it politely. It is the sound of a metal door giving up on life. It is the sound your spine makes when it tries to leave your body. It is also, apparently, the sound that makes humans smile. Yes. Smile. I know. I checked twice. Humans do not have mandibles, so their faces are harder to read. But I have taught enough mixed-species cadets to recognize fear. Wide eyes, stiff shoulders, a tiny backward lean like the soul is packing bags. This human did none of that. She smirked. Not a brave smirk. Not a forced smirk. A real casual "you are not important" smirk. And then she said, in the calmest voice I have ever heard in a room full of terrified aliens, "Ah, cute puppy." I nearly dropped my lecture tablet. I am Professor Ivo Sorn, Senior Behavioral Instructor at Vanta Prime Interstellar Academy, and I was having what humans call a bad morning, though if you ask me, humans use weak words for serious problems. My bad morning started when the administration assigned me the Intro to Conflict Ethics class, which is code for "please keep these young predators from eating each other until finals." I had just activated the lesson wall. I had just written the day's topic in bright hollow letters: control, consent, consequences, and then the door hissed open. In walked Rax, a Kargan adolescent. Taller than the doorway. Shoulders like armored doors, teeth visible even when his mouth was closed, because his species believes subtlety is a disease. His eyes were the color of molten brass, and they scanned the room like he was counting which of us would be easiest to break. Behind him on a reinforced leash came the reason my morning turned into a survival exercise: a juvenile Kargan predator beast. 4 legs, low slung torso, bone ridges along its spine. A jaw that looked engineered for removing limbs with professional efficiency. Saliva threading from its fangs onto the floor. It roared. Every sensitive ear in the room folded in. 3 Lyra students flattened their antennae and turned gray. A Navo with feathers puffed to triple size and squeaked like a dying instrument. Even my assistant, Pico, a tiny anxious Murren with too many blinking eyes, squealed softly into our private comm. "Professor, that is not on the approved list." "No," I whispered back. "It is not." Rax grinned, seeing what he wanted to see. Panic. Respect. The sweet taste of attention. He tugged a leash. The beast's claws clicked on the floor, and each click landed on my nerves. "This is Grin," Rax announced to the class like he had brought a snack instead of a nightmare. "He will help the lesson." I stared at him. "Rax," I said, keeping my voice smooth, "your species has multiple regulations regarding predator beasts inside educational facilities." Rax angled his head. "Does it say I cannot?" "It says," I replied, "the beast must be muzzled, sedated, and supervised by certified handlers." Rax lifted the leash. "Supervised? By me? Certified?" Rax's grin widened. "I certify myself." Somewhere behind me, Pico made a sound like he was swallowing his own organs. I pressed my tongue against the back of my teeth, a calming habit. The class was already unstable. Midterm tension, rivalries. Young species trying to act old and failing loudly. Adding a predator beast was like sprinkling fuel on a cooking fire. Still, I was a professor, a professional, a responsible, which meant, of course, the administration would blame me if anyone lost a limb. "Rax," I said, "remove the beast from my classroom." Rax's eyes flicked past me toward the back row, toward the human. She was new. Transfer cadet from a Deathworld military program, which is the academic way of saying, this person grew up where the air itself tries to kill you. Humans were already a rumor in the academy. Half the students treated them like mythic heroes, the other half treated them like walking insult. This human, the one Rax was staring at, was named Mina. Simple name. Small syllables. Like she didn't want to waste time introducing herself when she could be doing something else. Like surviving. She sat sideways in her chair, relaxed, elbow on the desk, chin propped on her hand. Dark hair tied back, eyes steady. Not bored, exactly. More like, entered. Rax's gaze stayed on her. He wanted a performance. I felt it. The class felt it. That low pressure in the air right before something breaks. Rax said, "I brought Grim because your lesson is about consequences." He spoke louder as he said it, for the room. "And some beings," he continued, "have never learned consequences. They think they are special." Oh, so that was the target. My throat tightened. I watched Mina, waiting for the human reaction I had read about in incident reports. Sudden movement, sharp words, maybe violence. Humans did have a history of turning problems into problems with bruises. Mina's smirk appeared again. She raised 2 fingers, wiggled them gently at the predator beast, and said, "Hey, puppy." The room froze. Pico whispered in my comm. Did she call it a puppy? Yes, I muttered. She did. Rax blinked, offended, like she had insulted his family honor by not screaming. He yanked the leash again. Gren lurched forward, muscles rippling. It planted its front claws on the nearest desk, and snapped its jaws inches from a fluttering Lyris student. The Lyris squealed and fell backward, wings flailing. "Class," I barked. "Back away now." Chairs scraped, feet shuffled. Talons clicked. The room reorganized into a nervous circle, everyone trying to be far from the beast without looking like they were running. Mina did not move. She leaned back, slow, like she was in a cafe watching a street performer. Rax pointed at her. "You think this is funny?" Mina shrugged. "I think you brought your dog to school because you don't know how to get attention any other way." I heard a few involuntary laughs. Nervous, sharp, quickly swallowed. A drill kid covered his mouth like laughter was illegal. Rax's jaw flexed. "He is not a dog." Mina's eyes flicked to Gren's drooling teeth. "Sure, whatever. Still cute." Gren roared again. Closer this time. The sound hit the walls and bounced back into our bones. I stepped forward, palm raised. "Enough," I said. Voice firm. "Rax. Leash. Now." "Mina, do not provoke." "Professor," Mina interrupted politely, still smiling. "With respect, I didn't start this." I hated when humans said "with respect." They used it the way you might pat a creature before tossing it into a river. Rax's grip tightened. He did not pull the beast back. Instead, he loosened the leash. A fatal, deliberate slack. My stomach dropped. "Rax," I snapped. "Control your beast." Rax's grin returned, bright and cruel. "Let the lesson begin." Grin surged. Fast. Too fast for most species. 4 legs and hunger. Low to the ground. Claws slashing sparks from the floor. It launched toward Mina like a living spear. Half the class screamed. Someone bolted for the exit. Someone else collapsed under their own panic. Pico cried. "Professor, intervention protocol." I moved, but I am not young. I am not fast. I am not built to wrestle a Kargan predator beast bare-handed. Mina moved, but not like panic, like choice. She slid out of her chair in one clean motion, feet planted, shoulders loose. She angled her body slightly sideways, as if she had done this 1,000 times, and found the most efficient stance. Grin was airborne. Jaws open, saliva spinning. Mina lifted her hand, not to punch, not to strike. She held her palm out, and she said softly, "Sit." I swear on my teaching license. The beast hesitated, just a fraction, long enough for my brain to scream that should not work, but the hesitation was real. Its eyes, bright and predatory, locked on her hand, on her voice, on her calm. Then it snarled, shaking off the paws, and snapped again. Mina shifted her weight. Her other hand moved like a blur. She grabbed the leash, not the handle. The line itself right near the beast's neck, as if she wasn't worried about losing fingers. And then, with a twist of her hips and a pull that used the beast's momentum against it, she redirected the entire attack. Grin hit the floor, hard. Its body skidded. Claws gouged the surface. It yelped. An ugly sound, half rage, half surprise. The class went silent in shock. Rax stumbled forward, leash ripped partly from his control. "What?" Mina did not finish the beast. She didn't stomp it, didn't strike its skull, didn't do the easy brutal thing that everyone expected from a Deathworld soldier. Instead, she stepped over it, smooth, fast, and planted her foot beside its head like a boundary line. She looked at it, head tilted. "Oh," she said, voice full of mock sympathy. "You're cranky." Grin snapped at her boot. Mina didn't flinch. She leaned down slightly, just enough to speak into its face, and said, very quietly, "No." The word landed like a wall. The beast's jaw stopped mid-snap. Again, that fraction of hesitation. Again, impossible. Then it growled, weaker, confused. Mina straightened and turned her eyes to Rax. Rax looked lost. His big shoulders were still big. His teeth were still sharp. But his confidence had slipped, and now it dangled from him like a torn uniform. Mina said, "Your puppy needs training." Rax snarled, "Do not call him." Mina cut him off. Still calm. "You brought him here to scare people. That's lazy. If you want to be feared, earn it." Somewhere in the circle, someone exhaled a laugh that sounded like relief. Another student made a shocked clicking noise like their mouth forgot what language it spoke. I found my voice again. Mina, I said carefully, release the leash. Mina looked at me. Respect, actual respect, flickered for a second. Yes, Professor. She loosened her grip and tossed the leash back toward Rax. Rax caught it. Clumsy, like the concept of catching had been removed from his species handbook. Grin stood slowly, shoulders hunched, glaring at Mina. It wanted to lunge again, but it didn't. It looked like it was waiting for permission. Mina gave it a small wave. Good boy, she said. The class erupted. Not screaming this time. Noise. Voices overlapping. Shocked questions. How did she do that? Did she just talk to it? Is that human insane? Pico whispered in my calm voice, trembling. Professor, humans are not on the approved list either. Quiet, I murmured. I am thinking. I stepped between Mina and Rax, forcing the room to refocus. Everyone, I said loudly. Sit down. Now. This is still a class, not an arena. A few students obeyed instantly. Others moved like their legs weren't sure they belonged to them. Rax remained standing, breathing heavy, eyes locked on Mina like he was trying to decide whether to hate her or study her. Mina sat back in her chair like nothing happened. She even rested her chin on her hand again, amused. I turned to Rax. Remove the beast. Immediately. Rax's mouth opened, probably to argue, but then he glanced around. The circle of students was no longer afraid of him. Not full. Fear had shifted. It was still in the room, yes. But it wasn't aimed at Rax anymore. Rax felt it. You could see it in how his shoulders tightened. He pulled the leash. Come, Grin. The beast didn't move. Rax yanked harder. Come. Grin's head turned slightly. Eyes flicking toward Mina. The human lifted her brows like she found this very funny. Rax's face darkened. Obey. Grin growled low. I watched, fascinated and alarmed. The predator beast had imprinted, even slightly, on Mina's voice. Not in loyalty, maybe, but in attention, in recognition. That meant something. That meant humans did something to the instincts of other predators. I did not like that thought. Mina, I said. Please. Mina sighed dramatically, the way humans do when asked to do something incredibly difficult, like breathe. She leaned forward and snapped her fingers once. Grin flinched. Mina pointed toward the door and said, Go. The beast went. Just like that, it trotted, tense but obedient, toward the exit. Rax followed, face burning with humiliation. At the doorway he turned back. His eyes found Mina again. This is not finished, he hissed. Mina smiled wider. Cool. Rax vanished into the hall, the door sealing behind him. Silence draped over the room. 30 students stared at Mina like she was a new species. Mina looked around, then at me. Well, she said, that was a fun icebreaker. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to file 50 reports and request early retirement. Instead, because I am a professional and because my blood pressure cannot handle dramatic choices, I said, Mina, what in the stars was that? Mina shrugged. He was going to let it bite someone. Yes, I said. That was clear, so I stopped it. How? I repeated. Did you stop it? Mina leaned back, considering. Body language, tone, timing. Same as dealing with big aggressive guys. Several students made offended noises. Mina glanced at them. Not you guys, you're fine. Mostly. A few chuckles, nervous but real, rippled through the room. I stared at Mina, then at the scratches on the floor where Grin had skidded. Then at the dented desk where claws had landed. I said slowly, You spoke to it. Mina nodded. Yeah, you commanded it. Yeah, you called it cute. Mina smiled. Yeah, Pico whispered in my calm. Professor, I am updating my will. I ignored him. Mina, I said, are you trained in predator handling? Mina tilted her head. No. Then why did you do it? Her expression shifted. Not softer exactly. Just less amused. More present. Because, she said, if I waited for someone else to do it, somebody would have gotten hurt. The room quieted again. That was the human core. I realized. Not the muscle. Not the danger myths. Not the fearless grin. The assumption of responsibility. It was an alien concept, ironically. In most species, responsibility was assigned, handed down, contracted, logged. Humans grabbed it like a weapon. I cleared my throat. All right. New plan. I turned back to the lesson wall and wiped the hollow text. Control. Consent. Consequences. I wrote a fourth word. Instinct. Then I faced the class. You all witnessed an unacceptable breach of safety, I said, voice sharp, and also, unfortunately, an excellent demonstration. Mina lifted 2 fingers in a lazy salute, like she was being complimented. I pretended not to see it. Rax attempted to use fear as leverage. I continued. He believed he could dominate this room because he brought something dangerous. I paused, letting the memory settle. But danger, I said, does not automatically mean power. Eyes flicked to Mina. And power, I said, does not automatically mean violence. Mina's smirk returned. I hated how much the class was already absorbing her as a symbol. Humans did not join a room. They changed it. Now, I said, we will discuss what you should have done. A student raised a trembling hand. Run. Fair, I admitted, but not ideal. Another raised their hand. Call security. Yes, I said, and you should have, but you froze. Several students looked embarrassed. I did not blame them. A predator beast in a classroom makes freezing feel like wisdom. I paced slowly. Freezing is instinct, I said. So is roaring. So is posturing. So is smirking. Mina's eyes glinted, amused at being included. And so, I said, is following the strongest signal in the room. I looked at Mina. She looked back calm. I said, humans emit a signal you are not used to. The class leaned in. I could feel it. The collective curiosity. Fear had changed into something else, not comfort. Interest. A dangerous kind of interest, Pico whispered. Professor, this is how legends begin. Quiet. I hissed back. I faced the room again. Your assignment for today is simple. You will explain in your own words why Mina's behavior worked. Hands rose. Students began to speak. The room finally started behaving like a classroom again, but even as they talked, I watched Mina. She was relaxed, but her eyes tracked everything. Door. Corners. Classmates. Predators watch like that. And Mina, despite the soft skin and the 2 hands, watched like something that had survived too many things to waste awareness. My mind kept returning to one detail. Grin hesitated. Twice. That meant Mina's voice did something to the beast's instinct. Even if only for a heartbeat. I did not know why. I did not know how, but I knew this. Rax would not accept humiliation. And Kargans do not threaten lightly. They do not say this is not finished, unless they intend to finish it with teeth. As the class continued, the door panel blinked once briefly. A silent message pinged my instructor console. Security alert. Unregistered predator beast movement detected. Location hallway sector 9. My stomach tightened again. Sector 9 was not far. It was the corridor that led to the dorm wing, where the human lived. I looked up from the console and found Mina's eyes on me. She had seen the shift on my face. Humans read micro-movements like they invented them. Mina mouthed. Problem? I forced a calm smile that probably looked like a grimace. Yes? I said aloud. To the class. Continue your discussion. Quietly. Then to Mina in a lower voice. Stay here after class. Mina's smirk faded. Just a little. Sure. Outside the classroom somewhere in the academy halls, a predator beast was moving again, and I had a horrible feeling that the next roar would not be in a controlled learning dome. It would be in a place with no witnesses, no rules and no easy exits. I stared at the sealed door listening. If Rax was foolish, he would try to attack Mina directly. If he was smart, he would do something worse. And if Mina was Mina, she would probably smile, call it cute, and walk straight into it like the universe owed her a fair fight. That was my morning. It was not even midday yet, when the final bell chimed. The class escaped like smoke, fast and silent. Chairs still crooked, nerves still vibrating. The last students kept their eyes on Mina the way prey watches a sleeping hunter. Not hatred, not admiration. Something worth curiosity. In a place like Vanta Prime Interstellar Academy, curiosity could become a weapon overnight. The door sealed. The room settled into that strange hush classrooms get when all the noise drains away and leaves only leftover tension in the air. My assistant Pico hovered beside my desk, all fluttery limbs and blinking eyes clutching a safety manual like it was a sacred text. He looked as if he might faint directly into the pages. Mina stayed seated, elbow on the desk, calm again. Like she hadn't just flipped the entire social order of my class with one word and a finger snap. Professor, Pico whispered into my comm. If she smiles any harder, I will file a complaint against reality. I ignored him, because that is what professors do when assistants are correct but inconvenient. I looked at Mina. You saw the alert. Mina's expression didn't change much. She only shifted her eyes toward my console, then back to me. Yeah, the beast is in Sector 9, I said. That corridor leads to your dorm wing. Mina nodded once. No panic. Not even surprise. So Rax is being predictable. Predictable? I repeated, offended on principle. He brought an unregistered predator beast into a classroom. That is not predictable. That is a poorly managed disaster. Mina smiled. That's his species' love language. Pico made a tiny choking sound. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Mina, this is not a training ring. There are no padded walls in Sector 9. There are blind corners, vent shafts, maintenance hatches. If that beast is loose, it can kill a student before security reaches it. Mina's eyes stayed steady. So we go find it first. We? I said. Mina's smile returned. You're the professor. It's your classroom's mess. I opened my mouth to argue. Then, I remembered the administration. The reports, the finger pointing, the polite way they would ruin my career while telling me they respected my service. Yes, I exhaled slowly. Pico, alert campus security again. Tell them to seal Sector 9. Now, Pico's eyes widened. But Professor, if they seal, now, I repeated. He tapped his wrist console so fast his fingers blurred. Sealing request sent. Response time, uncertain. They are probably debating whether my message is a prank. Of course they are, I muttered. I turned back to Mina. You will not move ahead of me in the corridor. If something jumps out, you do not play hero. Mina raised her brows. You want me behind you? Yes. Mina's grin widened. That's adorable. I hated humans. Let's go, I snapped. We left the classroom. The hallway outside was brighter, colder, lit by white overhead panels that made every surface look clean. Vanta Prime loved cleanliness. It made visitors think the academy was safe. Safety, as I have learned, is mostly good lighting and paperwork. We moved fast. Mina walked with an easy stride, hands loose, head up. No dramatic crouching, no fear posture, just the Deathworld confidence that made other species uncomfortable, like watching a creature stroll through a storm with no shelter. Pico hovered behind us, murmuring status updates. Sector 9 seal request is pending, he said. Also, I have emailed the dean, and the vice dean, and the deputy vice dean, and the deputy to the deputy Pico? I hissed. Breathe. He breathed. Too much. Then he blinked all his eyes and said, Professor, I am breathing fear. Sector 9's entrance arch came into view. A wide corridor split off from the main hall marked by warning stripes and dorm signage. At the mouth of Sector 9 a red indicator light blinked. Not sealed, of course. I tapped my console. No response from security beyond automated reassurance. Automated reassurance is a phrase that means, you are alone. Mina glanced at the blinking light. So we go in anyway. We do not go in blind, I said. Mina's eyes flicked to the ceiling vents. Then we go in smart. Before I could stop her, she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, black and angular. She rolled it across her knuckles like she'd done it for years. What is that? I asked, alarmed. Mina held it up. It was a human training puck, used in obstacle courses. It could beep, flash, emit sound, and record movement for analytics. Harmless. Mostly. This, Mina said, is bait, Pico squeaked. We are baiting a predator beast in a dorm corridor? Mina nodded cheerfully. Yes, I stared at her. Why do humans always treat danger like a hobby? Mina shrugged. Because it's honest. People are complicated. Predators are simple. I was about to argue when a low growl rolled down the corridor, quiet but unmistakable, like something breathing around teeth. We all froze. Mina didn't move, but her posture changed. Slight shift of weight. Shoulders, ready. Eyes focused. That transition from casual to lethal was so smooth it made my skin prickle. I swallowed. All right. Mina, explain your plan quickly. While we are still alive. Mina held the puck and whispered. We make noise at the far end. We see if it's alone. If it comes, we guide it into a straight line. Straight line means no corners. No ambush. If it's not alone, if Rax is here too, then we deal with him. Deal with him how? I asked. Mina smiled. Politely, Pico whispered. I do not trust her definition of polite. Neither did I. Mina clicked the puck once. A soft chirp sounded. Then she tossed it down the corridor. It bounced once, twice, rolling toward the far end. As it rolled, it began emitting a high-pitched rhythmic beep like a small creature in distress. It was a clever imitation. Even my nerves reacted. The growl returned. Louder. Claws scraped. Something heavy moved in the dark. The corridor lights were on, but Sector 9 had long stretches between panels. Shadows pooled in the gaps, deep enough to hide a creature's body. We advanced slowly, Mina half a step ahead despite my instructions. I didn't correct her. It would have been like ordering gravity to stop. The beeping puck rolled to a stop near a corner junction and flashed. Then Grin appeared. He came out of the shadow like it was a doorway. Head low, teeth bared, eyes locked on the puck. He was even uglier up close. He stalked forward, muscles rolling under armored hide. He sniffed the air once and snarled, realizing the prey wasn't real. Then his eyes snapped up, and he saw Mina. His body stiffened. That hesitation again. It wasn't fear, it wasn't love. It was recognition. Mina lifted her chin slightly and said softly, "Hey puppy." Grin's ears flattened. He growled, but the growl sounded uncertain. "Behind me," Pico whispered. "Professor? It knows her." "Yes," I whispered back, and that is somehow worse. Grin took a step forward. Mina didn't step back. She raised her hand again, palm forward. "Sit," she said. Grin snarled and lunged instead. Mina moved in a flash, not a retreat, a sidestep. She let the beast's momentum carry it past her, then snapped her hand toward its leash collar point, catching the strap with fingers like clamps. She yanked. Hard. Grin's front leg skidded. His body twisted. He hit the floor with a heavy thud, claws scraping. But this time he didn't stay down. He rolled, fast, snapping his jaws at her forearm. Mina jerked back, just barely avoiding teeth. Then she did something I did not expect. She laughed, a short, bright burst, like she was genuinely amused. "Okay," Mina said, breathless, still smiling. "You're spicy today." Spicy. She called a killing beast spicy. Grin roared and lunged again. Mina's movements were precise, almost playful. She wasn't just avoiding, she was guiding. She shifted, angled, pulled him away from corners, away from dark pockets, into the lit center of the corridor. It was control. Not domination, but steering. I realized watching her that humans didn't always fight by overpowering. They fought by changing the shape of the fight. Pico clung to me, shaking. "Professor, I would like to be in a different universe, later," I muttered. Grin snapped again. Closer. Teeth grazed Mina's sleeve, ripping fabric. Mina's smile vanished. Not fear, not panic, just a clean, sharp seriousness. Like a switch flipped. Her voice dropped lower. "No," she said. The word struck like a slap. Grin hesitated again. Mina stepped in fast. She grabbed the beast by the ridge behind its neck using leverage, then shoved his head down, pinning it to the floor with her forearm across the thick bone plating. Grin threshed. Claws tore lines into the corridor surface. Mina leaned in and spoke into his ear, calm and cold. "You don't bite," she said. "You don't lunge. You don't get to decide." Grin's thrashing slowed just slightly, like her tone was pressing against his instincts. Then, from the shadowed junction behind Grin, someone laughed. A harsh, mocking laugh. Rax stepped out. He held a control baton in one hand, the kind used to shock predator beasts through collar contacts. It was illegal, of course. Unregistered, unapproved, unfortunate. Rax's eyes gleamed with vindictive joy. "Well," he said, voice dripping satisfaction, "look at that. The human thinks she is the alpha." Mina didn't look up. She kept her forearm across Grin's neck ridge. "Rax, you are about to make my day worse." Rax smirked. "I already did. I brought you the only creature in this academy that will not fear you." I stepped forward, raising my voice. "Rax, stand down. Security is on their way. You are violating." Rax snapped his baton toward me. "Professor Sorn, kindly stop talking. Your voice is irritating." Pico squealed softly. "He threatened a professor." "Yes," Mina said, still pinning the beast. "He's collecting bad decisions like trophies." Rax's gaze flicked to Grin. "Attack." Grin tried to surge up, but Mina's forearm held him down. Rax pressed a button on the baton. A crackling hiss filled the corridor. Grin screamed. Not a roar. A pain scream, sharp and animal. His body jerked under Mina's hold. Mina's eyes flared. In that instant, she didn't look like a student. She looked like a storm that had learned how to wear skin. "Stop," Mina said, voice dangerously calm. Rax grinned wider. "Make me." Mina released Grin instantly, stepping back, hands up, palms open as if surrendering. Rax laughed. "Yes. Good. You finally learned." Mina moved. She didn't move toward him in a straight line. She moved like a trick, a sudden shift, a blur, a change of angle that made my eyes lose her for a split second. Then she was close. Rax swung his baton. Mina caught his wrist, not with strength alone, with timing. with a twist that locked his elbow at a painful angle. Rax snarled and tried to yank free. Mina leaned in, close enough that her breath fogged slightly in the corridor air. She smiled again. "Cute stick," she said. Then she headbutted him. Yes, a human headbutt. I felt my own skull ache in sympathy. Rax staggered back, stunned, blinking, blood-dark fluid leaking from his nose ridge. He roared in fury and raised the baton again. Mina snatched it from his grip with a quick wrench and tossed it down the corridor. It clattered, sliding far away. Rax lunged at her with his claws. Mina sidestepped and drove her fist into his side, right under the rib plating, a precise strike that made him grunt and fold. Then she stepped behind him, grabbed his shoulder ridge, and shoved him face first into the wall. The impact shook the corridor panels. Rax hissed, dazed, trying to recover. Mina didn't keep hitting him. She didn't need to. Instead, she pinned him with one hand like he was a misbehaving child, and turned her head slightly toward Grin. The beast was shaking from the shock baton pain. Eyes wild. Mina's voice snapped sharp, louder now. "Grin. Sit." Grin froze. Then, unbelievably, he sat, right there in the corridor. Haunches down. Head low. Rax's eyes widened. The humiliation on his face was so intense it almost made me pity him. Almost. Mina leaned closer to Rax's ear and spoke softly like she was sharing a secret. "You wanted consequences," she said. "Here's one." She released him and stepped back. Rax spun, trying to regain his pride, his dominance, his story. Mina pointed at him with the same hand she'd used to command the beast, and she said with a casual finality that made my spine chill, "Down." Rax's body reacted before his mind did. He flinched, his knees bent slightly. Involuntary. The class rumor was true. Humans had a presence that could hijack instinct. Not mind control, not magic. Something old, something that didn't care about species pride. Rax caught himself, furious, and tried to straighten, but Mina's eyes held him. "Don't," she said. One word. Rax stopped. The corridor fell silent except for Grin's heavy breathing and Pico's tiny whimpers. I stood there, stunned, watching a human student hold a Kargan bully and his predator beast in place with nothing but posture and voice. Then the corridor lights flashed blue. Security sirens finally. 2 armored security officers rounded the far end, weapons raised, scanning for targets. They froze when they saw the scene. Professor standing stiff, a small assistant trembling, a human student calm holding an aggressive Kargan pinned with a single hand, while a predator beast sat obediently at her command. One officer's visor tilted toward Mina. "What happened here?" Mina shrugged. "Puppy got loose. Owner got cranky." The officer stared. Then they stepped forward, shackling Rax with magnetic cuffs, securing the baton and fitting Grin with an emergency muzzle and restraint net. Rax fought and spat insults the whole time, but his eyes kept flicking to Mina like she had rewritten something inside him and he couldn't stand it. As they dragged him away, he hissed, "You are not special." Mina smiled, almost kindly. "I'm just trained." Rax's eyes narrowed. "In what?" Mina's smile widened. "Living," she said. They pulled him around the corner and out of sight. The corridor quieted again. Security took Grin away too, but the beast looked back at Mina once. Ears pinned, eyes wary, not hatred, something like respect or fear. The officers asked me for a statement. I gave it. I kept it factual because if I wrote what I actually felt, they would diagnose me as unstable. When they left, Pico finally unclenched enough to speak. "Professor," he whispered. "Today was improbable." "Yes," I said. Pico looked at Mina. "Cadet Mina, how did you do that voice thing?" Mina stretched her shoulders like she'd finished a workout. Tone, confidence, timing. "Same stuff I told you, that is." "Not enough," Pico said. Mina glanced at me. "You want the real answer?" I hesitated. "Yes," I admitted. "I do." Mina exhaled slowly. Her eyes drifted down the corridor, toward the corner where Rax had appeared. "My home," she said. Voice quieter, less joking, had a lot of predators. Not like Grin. Smaller, faster. Some with venom, some with claws, some that hunted in groups. I listened, uneasy. Deathworld stories always sounded exaggerated until you remembered humans existed, and then you had to accept the universe had a sense of humor. Mina continued. "When you grow up around things that can kill you, you learn something early. Most predators don't want a fair fight. They want easy. They want panic. They want you to run so they can chase." She looked at me. "So," she said, "you don't give them panic. You give them a problem." I felt a chill. "That's what you did today," I said. Mina nodded. Rax wanted a scene. Grin wanted prey. I gave them neither. Pico blinked rapidly. And calling it a puppy? Mina's smile returned. That's just me being rude on purpose. It takes the power out of it. I stared at her, processing. Humans insult fear to make it smaller. That was a strategy I had never seen. I walked with Mina back toward the main hall. Students peeked out of side corridors as we passed. Whispers followed us. Eyes tracked Mina like she was a dangerous celebrity. I didn't like it. Fame in the academy attracted challengers, and challengers attracted blood. At the dorm entrance, Mina paused. "Professor," she said. "Thanks for coming." I blinked. I did not help. Mina smiled. "You did. You didn't freeze." I almost laughed. Almost. "Go rest," I said, "and avoid corridors with shadows for the next month." Mina saluted lazily. No promises. Then she walked into her dorm wing, shoulders loose, head high, like the universe was just another hallway she could handle. Pico hovered beside me, watching her disappear. "Professor," he whispered, "the human is going to change the academy." I stared down the corridor, thinking of Grin's hesitation, of Rax's flinch, of the way Mina's voice had cut through instinct like a blade. "Yes," I said quietly. "She already has." And somewhere in the distance, far deeper in the station, I heard another sound. Not a roar. A laugh. Students laughing. Not at Mina. With her. That was the most dangerous thing of all, because once an entire room decides a human is the strongest signal, everything else starts adjusting to survive.